Hello and welcome to this conversation brought to you by Xplore Series at XLRI Jamshedpur. Joining us today for the podcast is Mr. Ritesh Prakash, a seasoned product leader with over 15 years of experience in industries like fintech, food tech, and networks. He has led product functions at companies such as Lendingkart, Jubilant FoodWorks, and Times Internet. And today, he's the founder of PMstack, a venture dedicated at mentoring and developing the product managers of the future. With his unique mix of corporate leadership and entrepreneurial vision, he brings a rich perspective on product leadership and what goes beyond it. It's a pleasure to have you here, sir.
Thanks for having me.
So, sir, every leader, as we know it, has a unique journey. I would love to know what your journey has been throughout the process, like within product management and beyond.
So I see my journey as someone who has grown into product management. When I started with product management, it was not a very popular function within an organization. So I started off as a product specialist working for Yahoo, and wherein I learned the ropes of product management. Eventually, I grew into product management, managed different sort of products. So I started off with content-based products, then moved on to products which were into lending, which were into food delivery, etc. Right, where I learned the ropes along the way. And over the course of this 12 plus years of product management, I started leading teams, working on product strategy, working with CXOs to define and drive the product roadmap for the organization. That is how I have seen my journey, where I have evolved from a IC to a product leader. And over the course of period of this 12 years, I have been fortunate enough to work in many industries and learn how those industries work.
So building on that, since you've worked in like a varied set of industries, what are some of the key differences and similarities that you have experienced across different industries? How do you approach product management or managing teams or strategies for products across different industries?
Yeah. So first I will talk about similarities. So in terms of similarities of how product management gets done in some of these companies, right? So the fundamentals remain same, okay? A product leader should bring clarity, should be customer obsessed. The product leader should be able to look at individual customer feedback, but be able to go beyond that, understand the true patterns which are emerging from your customers, from various feedback channels that you are having, right? So that is very common across all the industries. You have to rise above, you have to look, identify the patterns, understand where your industry is going on. So that is common. And of course, like, you have to bring clarity for your team, for your organization, so that you deploy your product development resources in a most efficient manner. Okay? That is common. What is different and which is evident in my journey also. So initially when I was working for various product management companies, right? So there the content was mostly content, okay? Or the product was mostly content driven. Then I transitioned into companies which are into operational product, where operations become very, very important for the product to function, such as companies like Lendingkart, such as companies like Jubilant FoodWorks Limited. There, the difference comes in is you have to be much more empathetic toward different business units who you are working with, because you cannot sit in an ivory tower and define strategies. You have to work with the business teams. You have to work with the ground teams. If I'm working for, let's say, Domino's, right? If I have never been to a Domino's store, I will not be able to understand or empathize with the person who is actually working on the POS system, right? So in those cases, what I have learned is like, okay, when you transition to an industry which is more operational heavy, you have to be much more empathetic towards your colleagues, your other business units, and you have to ensure that you get hands-on experience and hands-on visibility of how work gets done in your company.
Right, absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense, how these things vary. Another interesting thing is that while exploring different industries, you also got a flavor for different cities across India. And being a true blue Delhi boy that I am, I feel compelled to ask you the question that like you've explored Bangalore, you've seen the startup culture, you've seen the limelight that Mumbai has and the power in Delhi. What's your preference? Which city do you feel connected to the most?
You would be happy by by listening to the answer. So I've lived in like many more countries apart from that. So I've lived in Kozhikode for 2 years as part of my MBA program. I've lived in Hyderabad for 2 years. So I have lived in many cities so far. I mean, but the favorite remains Delhi and Delhi NCR. And that is not because like, okay, I am from Delhi or I am from the northern part of India. That is primarily because of food. I love the food which I have or I can have in Delhi, right? So the food is something which I used to miss a lot when I was in Mumbai or in Bangalore. And that is one part which I would say why I love Delhi. However, Bangalore has its own good aspects. So Bangalore has that startup and the techie feel, which is not matched by any other city in India. I just walk into a cafe and I can see startups, 4 or 5 people huddling together, working on their startup, sipping coffee, discussing, having very strategic, very techie discussions, right? This is something which you can never find anywhere else in the country, right? Mumbai has its own charm. Mumbai I like because of their spirit and the openness that they have. So I have not seen any city in India where people are more receptive to change, to try out new things. So Mumbai has that culture, right, which is to adopt the change, okay, which is something which is very, very unique, okay. Not every culture is so open to adopt a new change. Mumbai is having that. So every city has its own preference. I prefer Delhi because food is like, okay, above everything else.
Right, no, I absolutely relate there. I grew up having the Delhi food, so I can totally understand that. So now, so circling back to products and like products in general, so like everyone can have a different definition of product management. So throughout your journey, what has been your definition of product management, and how has it evolved?
Yeah, so I see my product management journey as someone who had actually learned product management by doing things. Okay, when I got into product management, there were no certification courses, there were no YouTube videos, there were not enough written content except How to Crack PM Interview, the book, which gave me some insight into how product management is done, and a book by Marty Kagan. Okay, that's all I had, and resources were less. So I read the books, but of course, like on ground, companies were not so conducive or were not so adaptive to the product thinking. Okay, so that is something which I have learned. I have tried to inculcate in my organizations where I have worked for. So it was all learning by doing things. Okay, how things have evolved over the years is that, okay, now since like the overall I would say culture or overall I would say the content which is available around product management has evolved. Now that is a given. Okay, so now over the later part of my years, my focus was primarily into stakeholder management, ensuring that, okay, how do I make sure that we are able to communicate the change or the impact that we are trying to make in the organization, building a product culture within the organization. How do I make sure that my team is not looking up to me always when they are executing something, right? Can I empower them? Can I train them? Can I coach them? And make sure that they are able to make decisions by themselves and they can drive the change by themselves. Okay, so where my role will be primarily to coach them, to mentor them, to ask the right questions so that they don't make mistakes, and if required, maybe like give them some hands-on hand-holding. Otherwise, like building a product culture has been the core focus of my work in the later part of my years.
Right, absolutely. So, and it's quite a stark contrast that like when you started off, there were not a lot of resources, and now we are in a situation where you are actually developing or creating those development plans for product managers of the future. So, what has that journey been like for you to transition from corporate to entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So I'll start with maybe entrepreneurship thing, and then I'll talk about maybe helping other professionals to learn product management. So when I always had that urge of starting something on my own, doing something on my own, building something and see if I can create value, right? So that is what my sole purpose was, to create something of value, to create something of impact, which I am proud of, right? So that is how it started. And also there was one fear that I should not regret that I did not try. That was another thing which which actually prompted me, or which led me into starting up on my own. So with those thoughts, I just started creating content around product management, because I thought, if I have learned something by hard work, let me try to distill it and try to give it to someone who is now exploring product management. Can I get them excited? Can I get them explore product management because they read something which I wrote about, right? So that was the whole purpose of doing that. But then I started getting pings. Then people started contacted me and saying that, do you also coach? Do you also teach? So that's how this entire idea got germinated, where I said that, if people are looking for it, why don't I create comprehensive content and also start coaching? And that is how it started. So it was all started as a maybe altruistic journey, where I just wanted to create content, transition into something where I was able to help professionals in a much more effective manner, by teaching them, by coaching them, by helping them learn the basics of product management, learn the tools of product management, right? And become better at it. So that is how it started. And so far, some journey has been done, but there is still long way to go. And looking forward to meeting and helping other professionals in learning the art of product management.
Yes, sir. Very, very few people are actually able to drive like a cultural impact such as this through entrepreneurship. So I salute you for that, sir. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So building on this, like as we work towards developing individuals for this, currently there's an ongoing AI gold rush of sorts, where for all products and services that are probably not even remotely related to AI, the AI sticker is being plastered on them, and there's a force fit of a lot of features that are there. Amidst all of this, how does a good product manager still caters to the needs of the clients without being totally affected by market trends?
Yeah, I think this is a very good question, because when AI came, especially the generative AI came, and there was a lot of pressure on corporations, on boards, basically company boards, to actually do something in AI, because that kind of like showed that they are trying to increase the shareholder value, something like that. So there was a lot of pressure from the top as well, and I've seen that in action. What I would say is that in fact, like what I would say is that whenever you are trying to implement AI in whatever way in your organization, trying to solve a problem, try to make sure that you are not targeting any vanity metric. So vanity metric, maybe like if I do this, I'll have more number of users. But does those user transact on your platform? If I do this, users will come back more often to my app. But when they come back to the app, do they engage more, or do they just drop off after the first visit, right? So that is where we have to take a very strong, I would say, conviction that whatever I am trying to do with AI, right, it's gonna move my North Star metric. It is gonna change the way that we operate. It's going to impact my operational metric. So if you choose the right reason to implement AI, you will see success. And I remember in one of the cases where at Jubilant we were trying to improve the chatbot, and we had a vendor who had the chatbot application set up, and they said that why don't you start using generative AI? I said let me just see what capabilities you have. We tried the capabilities, and what we saw is that it was just a wrapper. There was nothing intelligence into it. There was not much intelligence into the responses that were getting generated, which I felt would actually act negatively, because if you are not giving precise and right answers as per your policies that your company has, right, it is going to counteract, right? So I mean, I could have ticked the checkbox and said that, okay, we are using generative AI, but those answers are in fact like not useful in any manner to the business, right? So in that case, I took a stand and said that, okay, we'll not use or will not implement generative AI as of yet, okay? We'll evaluate in future, and when we think that, okay, things are better, we'll probably evaluate it. So maybe like if the solution was that, okay, can we build a RAG on top of that where we have the company data, we train the model using RAG and use a RAG model to answer to the customer queries. That would have been better, right? But a plain wrapper of a response sending to the customer, a generic response will not help. So be very, very clear in terms of, okay, if I implement AI, will it change something for the business? Will it change something for the customer? And if you are clear on that, you will see returns coming from AI.
Right. Absolutely. I think that makes sense with the kind of evolutions that have happened in the real time. And I think which is why there are also a lot of students that are not from the technical core who are also eyeing these kind of roles. So I think that's where my last question to you is directed. So for the MBA graduates who would be watching this podcast, what would be your like guidance to them? What is the one, considering that you train a lot of students on this as well? Yeah. What is the one piece of advice that you would particularly give the MBA students who aspire to get into the product management industry?
Yeah. So if someone wants to get into product management, my advice will be is that, okay, understand what your strengths are. First of all, find the reason why you want to get into product management. You should be getting into product management for the right reason. If you are someone who likes to solve problems, if you are someone who can actually take ownership and make sure that things go to completion, if you are someone who enjoys the spotlight, even people might be sending you mails at 12 a.m. in the midnight, you should not get rattled and you should be like responding to them properly, right? So it's like a 24/7 job, right? Product management. So you have to be clear that, okay, this is the expectation that people will be having from you, okay? It is a high visibility position, so you should be ready for that. The second thing is like, okay, how do you prepare for that? So understand what your interests are. Which kind of industry do you want to work for? Do you want to become a generic PM, or do you want to get into AI, or do you want to get into something like data product management, right? Understand that based on your strengths. Okay, do you like working with data? Do you like churning data, right? Okay, go into data product management. If you're good into visualization, if you're good into customer experiences, go into business product management, right? Once you have these things clear, right, the only thing which I will say now is, okay, and that is very, very relevant for the today's time, because AI has become much more embedded and has given a lot of power in your hands. So instead of creating presentation decks, start building something, okay? Presentation decks will only give you theoretical or secondary research kind of knowledge, right? Start building something. Think of a problem that you want to solve. Start vibe coding. Create a product by yourself. Try to launch it. See what the response is. Try to grow that product further. Talk to your prospective customers. This will give you a lot more hands-on and relevant knowledge to get into product management, and also to become an effective product manager. Because once you do this, you will get a holistic experience of how a product is built, how it is launched, how do you serve your customers, how do you fix problems, and things like that, okay? So build something and be ready for the challenge. It's not an easy job being a product manager. So come with the expectation that you have to work very hard and just go for it, okay?
Absolutely. So thank you so much, sir. This has been a really insightful discussion from like the different kind of industries that you've worked in, and how product management actually varies from that. Finally settling the debate that the Delhi food is actually better, and in the end talking about your entrepreneurial journey as to how you're actually going about training the product managers for the future. So thank you so much for your time. So
thanks, Vaibhav. I think these were very relevant questions. I thoroughly enjoyed answering those questions, and also letting others know how they should approach product management, how product management is evolving, right? Very relevant question. Thanks for asking those, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to be part of Aurora 3.0 and be part of this podcast. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.